So during this session, we'll be conducting demonstrations and a simple quiz. If you have any questions, you can type in the chat box and we'll address them at a later time. And also at the end of the session, there will be a bonus question where you can stand to win a Kinder Explorer Learning Kit from Sentosa. And please be informed that upon winning the kit, we will require your details to be shared with our sponsor, Sentosa. And we also may have some winners from last week's session. Unfortunately, you will not be able to participate in this round because we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to win the Kinder Learning Explorer kit as well. So yeah, we ask for your understanding. And this Explorer kit is also only available for local audience. Yeah, but then no worries for our overseas friends. So you can still join in the quiz and have fun together. And in this webinar session, there might be some jargons that will be used when conducting for preschool children. You can use simpler terms that they are able to understand and relate better. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to the second session of Bike Science Going Green series. My name is Jaslyn, and I'm from Science Centre Singapore. And with me today is a leader from Science Centre KidsSTOP.
Hi, it's nice to see some familiar names. But for those who are new, let us give you an overview of what Bike Science is. So, Bike Science is a webinar that explores ways to encourage sustainability practices in schools. It is also aligned with the Nurturing Early Learners framework and will use everyday items found commonly at home and in schools. So, for our first session, we explored making our very own DIY compost with some green and brown items. So, Justine, what will we be doing today?
So today we are going to make our own self-watering planter with recycled PET bottles.
Oh, planting. Talking about plants, I remember back in my preschool days, planting a longan seed with the children, and it actually germinated, but then it did not grow to a mature plant. How about like all of you over here? As educators, what plants have you planted with the children before? You can type it out in the chat for us to take a look and see. So I know the common plants that we normally grow in preschools are like the green beans, mung beans.
So for me, I also grew some of the plants at my own balcony. So I started growing simple plants like kangkong or even capsicum seeds. These are some of the activities that we are going to share more in today's session. For today's activity, we are going to make a self-watering planter.
Oh, a self-watering planter. Oh, and someone said, they said green beans and other kinds of beans which can germinate faster. Oh, but today, Justine said we're going to make a self-watering planter. But does that mean we won't have to water the plant every day?
That's right, and leaders, let us learn more about plants and then we'll take a look at how the self-watering planter actually works. We will focus about plants. So what do plants need? So they need sunlight, water, nutrients from the soil, and similar to us human beings, we need nutrients as well. Plants also need carbon dioxide and also place them under the right temperature for them to grow. Plants indeed, they are very amazing because they are able to absorb the energy from the sun and then able to change it into the food and fuel their growth. So they provide food for humans and as well as for the animals. In today's session, we are also going to cover about plants to focus on the transportation tubes. So we will share more in the upcoming slides. The first part of the plant to grow out of a seed is the root. Right, so basically the water will enter a plant root through the root hair. And what happens next is this water will be drawn up through the plant's root, through the root hairs. The water will spread from the stem and move from the leaf stalk and to the other parts of the plant. We're going to find out what happens when we place this cabbage in the colored water after some time. So what I'm sharing over here is a time-lapse video that was captured for 4 hours. And you can see how the food coloring travels up to the cabbage stem through these transportation tubes called xylem. So this is a very visual effect that we can show it to the preschool children as well to understand how water travels through the plant. We can also carry out this activity using the celery stalk. So again, we place this celery inside this different colored water, and you can see that the food coloring moves up to the celery stalk through the special tubes called the xylem. The celery stalk was placed in the green colored water, and this green food coloring actually highlights where the xylem is. So through our naked eye, we are unable to see xylem because it is transparent. That is the reason why we add in colors to see the xylem tubes. We can also cut the celery stalk in different sections, such as a cross-sectional view or even a longitudinal section view of the celery to show students how this xylem tube works. To summarize this, basically we want to show them that the roots will take in the water and nutrients from the soil. Xylem tubes will be the ones to carry the supplies up from the roots to the stems and to the rest of the plant. Ever wonder how this xylem and phylum will look like under the microscope? So basically all parts of the plant will require food and water. So the name of the transportation tube to move the water is known as xylem. So xylem will carry water and mineral salts upwards from the roots and to the parts of the plant. Next, phylum is another type of transportation tube. So the emphasis is able to move the food around. It carries food from the leaves to the other parts of the plant. The plant leaves will act like little food factories that will make food for the plant. How do we make a self-watering planter? So we will require a plastic bottle, scissors, strings such as yarn or even wick will work, tape, soil, and today's activity we are going to use seeds, and the type of seeds that we are using will be basil seeds. We'll need sponge as well as water. So now I will invite my lovely assistant Lydia to show us the steps on how to make a self-watering planter via a table cam. The first step, we are going to use the scissors to cut the bottle horizontally around the center. Over here, we are going to use any type of tape to cover up the sharp edges. So this is an example of how it will look like when we cover it with the tapes on both sides of the bottle. So we are going to get ready our string, and then we need to tie a knot. So once we have tied the knot, so we are going to place the knot above the sponge. And once we are done with this step, so we are going to roll the sponge. So we are almost there, and then we are going to fit it into the bottle cap. So this is how it should look like. Okay, so right now we are going to pour some water. So we have to ensure that the sponge is able to absorb the water. The wick is able to draw the water up. So next, what we need at the top half of the bottle will be the soil. So we use the potting soil for in this case, and then we are going to transfer the soil to the bottle. So that's where we are going to place our basil seeds. Normally I will place around 8 to 10 seeds. So it's really, really tiny. So you just need to ensure that we space it apart when we do our self-watering planter. And once we are done with it, so normally the top layer, then I will put it with maybe a thin layer of the soil. So we can't place the seeds very in depth because it might affect the germination process. So next, we are going to show you how it looks like when the seedling was formed. So this is 1 to 2 weeks of the young basil leaf. And then we have a matured basil leaves at week 4. So you can see how well the plants germinate. And we can also try this with other types of seeds as mentioned, such as kangkong or capsicum seed. So how does the science works behind a self-watering planter? This is an example of how water travels from the roots to the leaf and keep the soil moist. So the plants will take in water from the roots. So the self-watering planter, the string or cloth that's used is basically to wick the water from one location to another and helps us to self-water the plant. This is the different view of the germination of the basil leaf. So this is the top view as shared earlier. And at week 4, we can see more leaves starts to appear. The plant grows taller. All leaves have a very important thing to do. The plant will take in nutrients from the soil. Once you are done, you can actually harvest this basil leaf for your food. Now I've shared so much information. It's time for us to do a
Quiz. That's right. So this will be like a practice round for the bonus question later on. So let's See what's the first question. So the first question is, water is taken from the surroundings into the plant through leaves, stem, or roots? And the answer is roots. So those who said roots, you are right. For our question 2, plants respire only in sunlight, only at night, or all the time? And the answer is all the time. Just like us, we breathe in all the time. The third question is, the transportation tubes that carry water and nutrients from roots to all parts of the plant are called xylem, phloem, or stem? The answer is xylem. So now we'll be sharing more about the part that's in alignment with the NEL framework. We'll be sharing some process skills that can be demonstrated through this activity. So we chose the process skill communicating and experimenting because, like what Jaslyn said earlier on, they can actually experiment with different sizes of bottle. They can even experiment with like different types of strings, like for the older children. And then this activity is very much linked to the domain on discovery of the world because it touches on the topic of planting. But then from the process of getting them to make the planter, to taking care of their own plants, they learn to take responsibility for their own items. And actually this is linked to their social emotional development. And by getting them to, decorate their own planter with markers, stickers, or like some decorative materials, this will then be linked to the domain on the aesthetics and creative expression. So actually overall it's an integrated activity that helps to develop 2 or more of their developmental domains. And a good way to cultivate like these process skills, like what I mentioned last week, is actually through questioning techniques. So like the open-ended questions that we ask children, and questions that children might ask us as well. It's good for documenting like their learning process. And I remember like before I left like the preschool industry, the one technique or strategy is also the I see, I think, I wonder. It helps to document the flow of children's thinking and their thought process. And actually all these help children to wonder, ask questions, and also search for answers to develop new ideas and concepts. And so for now, we have a special guest speaker from the National Library Board today to share some information and books related to the topic on sustainability. Let's welcome Lisa.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much to Science Center for having me here today. I really thank you all for the talk as well. I really felt like I was back in primary school learning about the different parts of plants. And the self-watering plant was something I haven't really heard about until today, actually. So thank you very much. It's something we can also share with the children in the library. So today, I will be sharing with you 6 books. I will not run through all of them in detail because I have prepared a book list and you can access it at the very end of my presentation. I will also be showing the hardcover copies of 3 of the books, which I really feel were very impressive and also really captured the very specific knowledge that I think could be shared with your children. So the first 2 books that I have are Trees by Carmen Saldana and Little Dandelion Seeds the World. Trees is a very special book because it is actually made of 100% recycled material. So it's a very eco-friendly sustainability book. And later when I show you the hard copy, it comes with a lot of wonderful surprises that you can share with your children. But what I really liked about that book also is that it speaks very clearly about deforestation, as well as the impact of deforestation on the environment, aside from all of the important scientific facts of trees, such as how they convert carbon dioxide into oxygen during photosynthesis, which is also very important for children to know. So you're getting 2 lessons in one with this book. It teaches children about the scientific facts, the importance of trees in the ecosystem, as well as the impact they have on the environment. The second book, Little Dandelion Seeds the World, is very interesting because it's sort of an interdisciplinary book. It's written in a very poetic way. And when I show you the book later, there's actually a nice little trail that the children can trace with their hands in the book. So that practices their writing ability, which is one of the 5 important early literacy skills when developing their early literacy. Little Dandelion Seeds the World also is a very simple storylines so children are able to be engaged, and there is a fact sheet at the back of the book where they will be able to understand facts about dandelions. So then the next few books, I will not go in very few detail, because again, as I mentioned, there's a book list at the end which you can access. But the third book, Plants Fight Back, is a very interesting one, which I will show later after my presentation, because it goes one step further again to talking about the interesting facts about plants. Here we talk about plants and how they protect themselves from animals who try to eat them, or from the harsh habitats such as the desert or winter, and how plants have these interesting adaptability features as in order to protect themselves. And I think it's also good to teach children that not all plants they should be touching when they're out in the wild. It's a very important skill when they're out and exploring the world on their own. So cross-pollination, flowers are calling, and why do leaves fall from trees are found in the book list. I won't go into too much detail, but I would just like to add that flowers are calling is also quite interdisciplinary, because it involves short poetic passages about plants, as well as scientific facts about flowers, as well as flowers that can be found all over the world, not just in Singapore. And why do leaves fall from trees talks about how as the seasons change, trees will go through an adaptability change as well, where their leaves will change color. So if you would like to access your book list, you can scan this QR code, or you can access the link on the slide. The link will also be available in the chat box as well. So please do access it. And my other colleagues who have also prepared book lists for their presentations for the previous seminar and the upcoming one next week have also placed their book list in there. And you can always find more exciting and enriching books on plants at our NLB catalogs. So I will leave the presentation with Plant the Seed and Grow the Minds of Children. And for now, I will stop sharing and turn off my virtual background so I can show you the books that I have with me.
Yay!
So the first I have is this one, which is Trees. It's a Live the Flag Eco book. And what does that mean is that you are able to, if you can see here, this little part here, you can lift the flag and it will show you more information. So a good way to engage children in reading is to have them interact with the book itself. So when you hold this, perhaps you could ask your children to come one by one and lift up the flag and read out to the entire class. This is also 100% recycled material, so it's also a good way to talk about sustainability. The second book I have is Little Dandelion Seeds the World. And as I mentioned, there is this tracing pattern that they can trace with their finger, as is a good way to also have the children interact with the book. And as they trace, you could have them read the book as well. Like as they trace, you can have them read tumbling, and then down with a root, up with a shoot, as you can see. It's also told in rhyme, so it's very easy for the children to remember. And my last book I have is Plants Fight Back. This is a very interesting book which talks about the predatory parts of plants and how they use these parts to protect themselves. So here we have the mimosa plant, which I think is quite commonly found in Singapore. And we also have a tapir in the page as well. So this book is very informative on a number of levels. It has all sorts of pictures and all sorts of facts very simply told to children, so that when they experience seeing these plants in the wild, they know not to go near them, because these plants are protecting themselves using quite a number of dangerous characteristics. So that is my book talk. I hope that you find that these books are informative for you and for your children. If anything, you can also find many different types of books at our libraries. So thank you again, Science Center, for giving me this chance to share with everybody.
Thank you, Lisa, for
Thank you.
sharing.
Oh, there's a question from Fika, and she says, does the length of string affect how much water is absorbed?
Alright, so thank you, Fika, for your questions. No, the length of the string will not affect how much water is absorbed. So as long as the water level is able to reach the sponge and the soil is moist, but if not, if you see from the top of the self-watering planter, if the soil is a bit dry, so you can also water at the top initially for the self-watering planter. What happens if sometimes the seed doesn't germinate? So germination normally will take about 4 to 6 days. So if it does not germinate, meaning the self-watering planter actually need more water because the wick might not draw as much water than the plants required.
So now is a chance for you to win a Kinder Explorer Learning Kit from Sentosa. So how to win this kit is you have to type your answer in the chat box and you'll get a chance to win. We'll be giving away 3 kits to the first 3 participants who answered. So like what we mentioned at the start of the session, we have some winners with us today. So yeah, unfortunately, you won't be able to participate. And these kits are also only available for the local audience. And if you are ready, we're going to flash the question. And the question is, when does photosynthesis take place in plants? Nighttime without light, daytime with sunlight, or artificial light? The first 3 are Michelle, Shannon, and Shaza. All right, so these 3 are our winners. Yeah, so actually we have reached the end of our session. Yeah, we would like to thank all of you for joining us today. And this also wouldn't have been possible without our sponsors. So we would like to thank them for making this happen.